All right, good evening. We're going to get started here. Shirley. Shirley. Hi, Shirley. How are you?
I'm just fine, thank you.
Was your summer good?
Good. Yes.
Good. All right, we're going to get started here. Welcome back. It's, well, I think it's been a quick summer. I don't know about the rest of you. Not as hot as some would have expected, but we're going to get started here. Good. Okay. Hi. So we're going to get started here. For those who don't know who I am, my name is Steve Fulton. I'm chair of the Niagara branch, and we just want to welcome you here tonight. We're just going to go through a few things. If some of you get your newsletter by email, you will already know of some of the things we're going to talk, and the ones that get it by mail, that will come very shortly. So we always do a pass it on, and simply because we want to know what other genealogists are doing. And I know everybody kind of sits in their seats and they're like, don't look at me, just ignore me, he can't see me. But how many people actually went out and did some honest to goodness genealogical research this summer? I'm really jealous of a whole lot of you. That's good. That's good. We're hoping to... Give me a second. I'll let you say. I know. We're hoping, my wife and I, to track down her grandfather's, when he came over as a British home child, he first settled in Huntsville. So we're making arrangements to head to Huntsville over the Thanksgiving weekend to see if we can track some information down and stuff like that. So we're looking forward to that. Diane, did you want to share something? All right. You need to... People at home.
Okay, something for Diane. There's a website. You send over an email to them. They'll send the papers back to you and give them all the information, and they'll send it all back to you. But there is a page in Ontario where you can look them up too, because we have 3 in our family. I forget what I was going to say. You stopped me now. I can't remember.
You can always come back up.
All right.
I know. I should have just kept going. All right. Is there anybody else who wants to share what they're researching? Yes. Come on up. All right. Come on down, Shirley. The price isn't right around here, but...
After paying a visit to my doctor today and going to 2 different grocery stores and coming home, I came into Niagara Grafton Gage Village and sat down, Surrey, near the library. Then I decided to go into the library. It's a very small library with 2 little computers in it, and one lady that's always sitting there playing solitaire. And I said, have you ever tried to follow your family tree? And she looked at me and she said, what's that? So I explained it all to her, and I thought, I wonder if these computers can bring up anything on family trees. I was so excited when I found out I could get into FamilySearch.org. I didn't know these 2 little computers were all set up for that. So I've asked her, and I'm not sure I'm going to get to the information from her because she's very close to dementia. Unfortunately, she's all excited about it, and I felt the thrill of my life to be able to help someone. And maybe I'm wrong, because I told her the next time I see her, if she has the information ready for me, we'll get started on her family tree. That was my excitement for today.
That's excellent. Thank you. You remember, okay. Come on up.
In my old email, I just happened to go and check it because I've still got a few things in there I have to get out. There was then McClary, who wants to know, he's got quite a bit down on his family, but he wants to know where his property was. And I said, well, down in the village of Stanford, my husband's great-great-great-grandmother had a lot of property there. And I said there was McClary's right beside them. So I sent him all the maps. And I said, can you send me anything back of your family that you've got, and I will help you look it up. I'll look it up for you. So he said, that's great, and he sent me 4 pages full of family trees. So he has done a lot of work on it, so I'm going to help him trying to find the land. But the land that I was talking about is the 1870s. And the one grandfather that he's talking about died in 1828, so I don't know where I'm going to find that. 20, yeah, that's right too. Yeah. Okay, so anyhow, that's what I had.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right. Let's come up with a story. I needed to, and then we'll get you in the back. I just needed to remind people that we are streaming this live onto the internet for those who are at home. Diane, you know that. And we have people, all members from around, who are watching this from their home. So go away. They like to see you.
I'm sure. Well, the story I have is what can happen. Last spring, I got an email from a Nick Wood. Well, I'd never heard of Nick Wood, but I did punch in. And he said, well, his wife wasn't interested, but he was doing all this genealogy. And she was a Mckee, which is what my grandmother was. And I've just been connecting with Mckee, so I thought this was pretty neat. So I emailed him back, well, maybe we could get together. Most of the family's in Toronto, and I wouldn't mind going to Toronto. Well, turned out he came from South Africa, so there was no coffee. But this summer he was here, missed meeting with him, so now I've signed up to go to South Africa.
There you go. Come on. Perfect.
I'm Ron Dale. I don't come to too many meetings. This is the first one that hasn't conflicted with something else. But right after World War I, for the next couple of decades, the government worked on a book of remembrance to record the names of all those who died during World War I. And that rests in the Memorial Chamber of the Peace Tower at Parliament Hill in Ottawa. Over the years, another 5 books of remembrance were added for World War II, Korea, peacekeeping, merchant marine, and so on. The government decided late last spring, early summer, to do a final book of remembrance, hopefully, for the War of 1812. And I was engaged to collect the names of about 2,000 Canadians who died in service during the War of 1812. So that's what's kept Ron a busy boy over the summer. It's been hours and hours, hundreds of hours of work. If anyone does have an ancestor who is in the Canadian militia or one of the Fencible regiments, First Nations warrior, or provincial marine who died during the War of 1812, you're more than welcome to contact me and I'll send you what information I have. Thanks.
Thanks, Ron. Bill.
I'm not sure. I don't see Rod Craig. Rod Craig sent me an email about middle of June and said that a contact with the French Canadian Society in Welland that we had a speaker here last year about sent him an email from another person. His name is Aaron, and Rod's email said, this guy wants to know more stuff about Youngs. Do you want to help him out? So I got a hold of him and figured out, he gave me some the tree names and started working on it. And at this point, I don't think we're related unless it's going back past, we'll say, the late 1600s when this person's young was in New Jersey. But that isn't that far-fetched from the Mohawk Valley, the way they walked around in those days. So again, much like your case, when you're on the internet, you don't quite know where they are in the world. I get emails going back and forth, and the way I sort of lead into that, I usually sign my name saying from sunny Niagara Falls, Ontario, Canada, and he wrote back saying from a very sunny Australia, and we've been going back and forth, and he's been quite pleased to find out his relative, Adam Young, and I have an Adam Young in my tree, but they weren't the same guys. He served in the War of 1812 in the 3rd Lincoln, and I sent him all the Library and Archives Canada muster roll dates of when he was working, and you know, a lot of times what happened, it was his relative Adam and his uncle and the father-in-law and the father-in-law's brother, they all signed up at the same time, or they served usually in a group, and that's the Meisner family. So I've been working trying to do that, and being closer to trying to get my relative Peter Young a graveside marker for being a War of 1812 veteran, and through the Facebook group that Tyler has a lot to do with, the Fort Erie Heritage Group has been very active in getting like 42 members in that area their plaques, and Sharon Dell is the person who's been very helpful in trying to give me some pointers on how to go about this process. So through social media, a lot of that has come together, and a whole lot more 23andMe relatives, but I won't go on about that.
Great, thank you. Okay, we're just going to move it on. First thing I need to just do, and this is going to lead up to something here, I need to formally announce that Niagara, the Niagara branch, Niagara Peninsula branch, has a member, Tyler Stevens, who is now a director with the OGS board, and we wish him well in that work. Tyler takes care of all of our membership and social media. He wears multiple hats, and we want to congratulate him on his appointment to the board and hope that Niagara and the old Region 4 now has a voice at the OGS board level. So congratulations, Tyler. I know, you'll get me later. I also want to just let some people know that there's many volunteers, and this is just going to lead up to something my Diane, my wife, wants to speak about briefly, is we have lots of volunteers from far and near. This summer we struck a branch finance committee. We're short of a treasurer at this point, and we've had some people step up and update some PMP, and they've been doing a fantastic job, so we really want to thank them for that. New volunteers, we've got a new newsletter person, Nancy in the back. She is, you can introduce to yourself later, she's kind of hiding under the chair back there, or wants to hide back under the chair. Current volunteers, we have lots of volunteers. We have, I don't want to say we have lots of volunteers, but we've been really blessed with the volunteers that we have, but there's always lots of jobs to do. At a distance volunteers, we still have Susan Leach from, forgive me, Susan, if you're online and can hear this, she's out west. That's probably the easiest way to say it. I can't remember. Saskatchewan. Saskatoon. Thank you. We have people who can volunteer from all over the world with the use of the internet, so we're really lucky with that. And just about the October meeting, briefly, you wanted to share something.
Okay, our October meeting is going to be a little different than our normal meeting. We're going to have a small talk that Mark's going to do for us or help us with, and then we're going to do a volunteer appreciation. So we're going to appreciate a branch appreciation, because they don't have to. We have people who have helped out in the branch, but they can't volunteer for other reasons and stuff like that. So if there's somebody in the branch that you want to just acknowledge that you appreciate them for what they do or who they are, please contact me through the branch email so that I can set up kind of an agenda so that we're not, 100 people grabbing the mic at one time. So I can just kind of do a little program for next October or for October's meeting, and we'll just have a great night.
Perfect. Thank you. Volunteers are what makes this branch. I'm not an employee. I'm a volunteer, and so are everyone else, from manning the cameras to the soundboard. Brian comes from Mississauga faithfully every month. You know what I mean? There's people all over that volunteer. Ron's done volunteering for the branch. Everybody's volunteering. You speak about this branch once and you're volunteering, and we want to thank you for that. They're so hard to get, so we're so thankful for them. And then Mark, our camera guy, is going to be speaking about a cemetery that's kind of been rediscovered over the summer, and he's done a lot of work in concern to that, and we want to learn about what he's discovered. So definitely come. YouTube and webinars, I put this in the newsletter, but I want to make sure that people are aware. We just found out yesterday, any of you watched the Who Do You Think You Are TV show? You know what I mean? I don't get any time, so, huh? Okay, well, I'm going to tell you how to get it. Do you have a computer at home? You have more than dial-up? All right. High speed. We just found out yesterday on our Facebook page that one of the members on our Facebook page discovered that Who Do You Think You Are is actually, all the episodes are posted on YouTube. So, if it does, I had 2 minutes to look at it. I don't know. All I know it's the US version of that. So all the episodes are on YouTube. If you just want to Google that, I mean, well, you can Google it, or you just go to YouTube and type it in there. It'll bring it up for you. So that's where I'm going, because I haven't had a chance to watch one episode since it came out. So it is on YouTube that you can do there. I just want you to be aware that YouTube is not just about music. There is a ton of genealogy stuff on there from all over the world on YouTube. Oh yeah, you could spend all day watching YouTube on genealogy. So the branch has a YouTube channel, and if I can just squeak over here for just a second, I'm going to give you a little taste of something, if I can get it to work. Where is it? There it is. Well, here we are again at another cemetery. We're at the Johnson Family Cemetery. It is located in Tintern in the county of Lincoln. We're approximately a kilometer from the homeowner's property at this time, out in the bush. It's quite a hike through a cornfield.
That's my voice.
But there's multiple headstones, as you can see. As you can see, many people have all their headstones have been placed here by someone. But we have Horton, and we have Johnson. Okay, so I just gave you a little taste of that. Over the summer, myself, Joe Wilson, our cemetery coordinator, Tim Lowry, have been involved in doing cemetery tours. We're also, we call them cemetery hunting. That particular one was a hunt. That was a trek and a half. We just happened to be driving down the road and be like, we could smell the cemetery around here. There's got to be one. We ended up trucking through the bush and through an old cornfield. What a haul. But that's the Johnson Family Cemetery. It was out in Caister Center, if I remember. Tintern. Thank you. It's not quite as far. If you go to our new website, which I'll bring up, we have all cemetery maps for every cemetery location right on our website. So if you need to know where a cemetery is, it is right down to the GPS coordinate where they are. Okay? There's about 6 videos on there now. They're very ad-lib. There's really no planning. I pull the publication up, do a quick little read on the publication, and I go to town. Rockway's in there. Johnson was in there. No, not yet. I haven't gotten to Donesridge yet. Laidlaw and 2 out in Niagara Lake with Tim. So, probably not. Just check the YouTube channel. You'll see the ones that I've done. And there's actually even a cemetery dowsing demonstration that's on there as well that people like to watch. It's kind of really creepy. So, I just want you to be aware of that. And as well, if you're an OGS member, I'm going to skip the next one, but if you're an OGS member, don't forget, OGS puts on a webinar, a free webinar for all members once a month that you can get under members only. Webinar is an online learning course. You can just sign in and you can, the last one was about social media. Okay? And they have speakers from the US, from Canada. I was thinking to do it, but I thought, no, I don't got time for that either. So it's a great member benefit. You know what I mean? It's there for the members. So just add this, we'll just move through these. We've come up, you've got a sheet that was on everybody's thing, on chair. The executive of the branch have put together a fall seminar, and I didn't print out all the details onto the screen, but you can see that there. There's a few purposes to this fall seminar. 1, to learn a little bit about genealogy, but 2, over the summer, the branch executive, our current bylaws are dated 2002. So they're 12 years old. Over a few years of trying to get them done, we managed to finally pass them at the executive level. And that fall meeting, first thing in the morning, we require the membership who can come to help us pass those bylaws. Because those bylaws, now that are updated, will take the branch into the future and bring us in line with OGS bylaws. Because our bylaws were at the point where they were about to be annulled. Because they were so out of whack with OGS bylaws, we either had to dump them or fix them. We had no choice at this point. So that was part of the reason. You'll see some other demonstrations what's going on in Niagara, and then all the information will be there. There'll be an online registration on our website, or you can sign up at the door for those who don't like to use PayPal and stuff like that. Next one. And I want to thank Brian and Tyler for setting, working on that event, because the executive were involved, but these guys did a lot of the lead, and I'm very thankful for that. The next one here is a research day at the Archives of Ontario, and it's got the best price tag a genealogist loves. It's free. The seating is limited. There's one-on-ones available. We have to hit certain numbers or they'll shut us down. The information is here. It says in the all branch, an email will be sent out to all branch members in the next day or 2. Tyler's going on vacation for a week. That email is not going to go out for a week. Okay? So you guys are getting a heads up, and whoever's online, you're getting a heads up to this. Okay? But this is exclusive to Niagara branch members. I've never been to the Archives of Ontario. I'm very excited. I'm already signed up. So it'll be a great thing. And the card, can you pre-register? Somebody was saying something about that. If you are planning on going, you need to pre-register for this card. Because if not, then you're in a lineup, and this card's good for life, and there's no cost for this card. Yeah, it's good for life. So you need to go through the process and pre-register for the card. Tyler, can you just go to AO's website and do it? Okay. If you send Tyler an email saying you're coming, he will send you the instructions how to get the card. Easy peasy and right to the point. Perfect. Okay. Wanted to touch base on this. How many have gone to the Niagara Falls cemetery tours? Okay, great. You know something? I haven't been able to get tickets for this thing for the last 2 years, and it really stunk. So this year, I seen them posted on Facebook, so I figured, well, instead of joining them, I'll just instead of beating or whatever you want to call it, I joined up. So I'm one of the actors now in the cemetery. Austin Morris, the original Undertaker for Morris & Sons. I'm very excited. I've never acted before. I know I act like a fool most of the time, but not professionally. So they wanted me to encourage people that this is coming up. There will be 4 nights, the last Friday and Saturday, the last 2 Friday, Saturday of October. I don't remember the dates right off the hop, but and there'll be 2 viewings a night. Yeah, it's 17, 18, 24, and 25th of October. I don't know what the costs are. You need to contact the museum. No, they're not. I don't think they are, but they go fast. Like I said, the last 2 years I have not been able to get tickets to it. So I figured this year I'll just join it. And that'll be the easy way to do it. So they wanted me to share that tonight. It's Drummond Hill, yeah. And you're led around by William, the actor William Dalton, who actually was caretaker for the cemetery. And we actually have a copy of the original diary that he took, that he documented every burial. Very fascinating. Great read. Okay. Yeah, it's going to be a great event. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Niagara on the Lake is doing a cemetery tour this month, and it's 2 weekends in September, and it's $10, and they do the same theatrical walk through the cemetery. I think it's St. Andrews or whatever the main one is.
St. Mark's, probably.
Martin's, yeah.
Yeah, okay, great. That's good to know. Maybe I'll get into this full time. But if I catch you, any of you in that cemetery, I'm going to be hiding behind a headstone. I'm going to come and get you. Just to let you know, over the summer, as well, volunteers, our library house is no longer home in the Thorold Public Library. We have moved to the St. Catharines Central Branch. Yeah, we've moved there for many reasons. But it's a great opportunity. We were very much welcomed by St. Catharines. We're very thankful for Thorold and all that they've done for the branch. But it was time, and we made the move. And it's just a great addition to St. Catharines. It's still our stuff. It's not being consumed by them, but they have an excellent genealogical collection, and we're just supplementing it. Yeah, it's just outside of special collections. Yeah, and a great opportunity. They're cataloging it all. They're security sleeving it all, everything. So eventually, they're hiring the staff to do it for us. Eventually, you'll be able to go to the St. Catharines Library's website and actually look online, on the online catalog, and see our collection online. It is there as well. Yep. 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 So they have about 88% of our microfilm already. So what we're doing is we're combining forces. We're going to pull out our 22%, or whatever the percentage, the 12% is, and kind of combine it together, so we're making it better. Okay? Yes. Unfortunately, no. Due to regulations with the new library, you're all more than welcome to go and use the library as you see fit. due to regulations with the library, we cannot have someone on site. It goes against staffing agreements. No. No. Well, you could bring a friend. You just can't sit there and help patrons because it boils down to simply union rules. There's nothing we can do about it. And the agreement that we signed was so good for the branch that that's just a very small thing that we had to sacrifice. Yep. Yeah. Well, I think parking downtown is free on the Saturday. Yeah, and on Sunday. The library is open Saturday and Sunday. Okay? Free is good. Yeah. No. No. Okay. The last thing I just want to touch on that people may or may not be aware of, September 16th of this year, there's going to be a general meeting at the Norfolk branch. That branch is voting to go inactive, just like Haldeman. Unfortunate, there are 5 folks down there who have been working for years and years and years, and they just don't have the volunteers, and they just can't do it anymore. It's unfortunate. There is some stuff that's happening at the provincial office level. We're hoping that will start to change this, but it's only in very small talk at this point. I just wanted to make you aware of that, and it's unfortunate, but instead of disbanding, they're just making inactive, so that it's easier to restart the branch if people want to become involved again. So, with that, Brian, Robin can come on up. We'll get to our speaker. It'll take a second just to flip over to his PowerPoint. It's currently in a library, so it will just remain in the library at this time. It's the same thing with Haldeman. They're in the Cayuga Museum. Everything is in a secure location at this point and available, but it's just unfortunate. Okay, we'll do that after. Okay, so Robin, I guess you can introduce. Perfect. I'll get your PowerPoint going.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, and thank you again for inviting me. I was here this last spring, and I did the Niagara Gorge Railway for you, and it was a world premiere because he found it online, and I was supposed to do it at my Heritage Society, but I did it for you first. Then Brian asked me to do another one in the fall, and we didn't really discuss what we should do. And so the idea is that it had to do something with Civil War, or it had to do with blacks, and I told him about Nelson Stevens, who was a black Civil War guy, so it all worked together. That what I did was I have 3 other talks that I do. One is Negroes in Hamilton, and then I do a Civil War talk, and I also do a Nelson Stevens workshop. So by putting all the 3 together, I wrote another new one for you. So again, my name is Robin Mckee. I'm a local historian in Hamilton, and I love the idea of having cemetery tours because that's basically what I do. I'm known as the cemetery guy in Hamilton, and I do the Stories in the Stones, and I do them every Saturday at 11 o'clock, and I also have that 4-letter word that starts with an F that everybody likes, and that's free. I do them for free, right? And so I've been doing it for 13 years, and my belief is that everybody has the right to know their local history, and it's not taught anymore, so I have the knowledge, I have the location, and I can do it. Now, I've also shared here in Niagara the Black Cemetery that's in Fort Erie. I have those photographs for you guys, and I also shared my research with Brian again, and it was I found from the 1890s a tour of the Niagara cemeteries, and it was telling about the stones that may not be there anymore. So you have that, and that's I'm a volunteer on the outskirts. Anyway, tonight is a brand new one called African Canadians in Hamilton. I wanted to call it Blacks, but we don't have to say that anymore. Anyway, this is a start with February for Black Heritage Month, and I wrote it in 2011, and you've got 3 different talks here tonight, okay? All right. Okay. That one? There you go. Okay. The first one I'm going to talk about is Sophia Pooley. Now, she was born in 1771 in New York, and she was kidnapped by the natives and brought to Canada, and she was bought by Chief Joseph Brant in 1779. She was the very first slave in the Hamilton area. She was sold to Samuel Hatt of Dundas for $100, probably pounds back then, and Samuel Hatt is the founder of Dundas, right? She was freed after the War of 1812, and she married Robert Pooley, and they moved to the Queen's Bush, and she died in 1855. And the Queen's Bush was one of the colonies for blacks in the middle of Ontario. There's one little story about her, about the War of 1812, and she was in Ancaster at the time, and she said in her dialogue that she heard the cannons from the Battle of Stony Creek. Yeah. Now, Colonel Simcoe, the first lieutenant of governor of Ontario, 1791 to 93, he passed one of the first acts of Parliament, and that was to prevent further introductions of slaves into the colony. And this predates any emancipation, and the British government didn't abolish slavery until 1833. Now, the Americans didn't do it until 1863, and with the proclamation from Lincoln. So we were that far ahead, and between those times is when we had a lot of free blacks in Niagara and the Hamilton area, and this started what would be the Underground Railway and freedom to Canada. One of the fellows I met was Pompeii Lewis. He was born in 1795 in Africa, and he was a founder of the Brethren Union of Society, and that's on his gravesite right here. And he's in the Hamilton Cemetery. I don't have him on a tour, but I think he's got a fascinating story. He bought a property on the Jolly Cut, and that was known as a settlement in Hamilton called Little Africa. You also have a Little Africa settlement here in Niagara, and it's along the river, closer to Fort Erie. And James Jolly bought the property in 1864, and Jolly was the one that built the Jolly Cut. So, and he died, he was 82 years old when he died. And that is in the Hamilton Cemetery. Right next to him is a guy named Fred Tomlinson, and his stone is broken. You see it on the right-hand side, and I pictured it together so that it would look what it would look like standing up. And he was killed in 1877, and the employees of the railway and his friends gave him the stone, and it has a railway car on the top. And he was a brakeman, a black brakeman. Now Holland, he was born in 45 and dies in 1928. He enlists in Detroit in the 1st Michigan United States Colored Troops, and he's the father of John C. Holland, who was the Reverend at Steward Memorial Church in Hamilton, which is the black church in downtown Hamilton on John Street North. And Holland is the grandfather of Noreen Virgin, who was the, she worked in Toronto as a media person, and the whole family thought that Holland went back to Maryland and joined up. But I said, no, that couldn't be, because that's where he would be considered a slave. And I did the research for her and changed their family story, because it was from Michigan that he went back. So this is research that you do, and you can change family stories. And that's what you got to listen to the family stories and see if it's real or not. Now, these are the fortifications in Burlington Heights, and you can see that that's an embankment, and there's a salient at the other end there, and that's the other way. Look, whoop, that didn't move. Okay. Okay. Yeah, and this is the other way where you can see this is the postcard on the right from about 1910, and the other side there is a photograph I took almost in the same position. So that embankment goes right across the cemetery, and that embankment was the fort of 1812, built in 1813, still there because it turned into a cemetery, and oops. Yeah, and it's a Niagara connection again because it was the Raunchy Corps, the Black Corps during the War of 1812, who were Niagara freemen, and they joined their own freemen Raunchy Corps, and that corps with Piedmont built the fort at Burlington Heights in Hamilton. In Hamilton, across from Dundurn Castle. It's the Hamilton Cemetery where I do the tours. All right. Oh, wonderful! Yeah, that's where I do the tours. Yeah, and the connection here with Niagara is that the freemen of Niagara were stationed on Burlington Heights to build the fort for the British because they were freemen but black, and the British thought they couldn't fight, so they gave them shovels and they built the fort. It's an earthen fort. And now here's the other thing: this same group of men, they built Fort Mississauga in Niagara-on-the-Lake. That fort still exists today, and when the Americans attacked Niagara from the beach to set up a beach strip, these guys proved they could fight, and they fought off 3 waves of the Americans coming in before they had to give up the fort. And that was when the fort fell. Yeah, am I right? He's the expert. Okay, this is also in the Hamilton Cemetery. It's an unmarked area between here. And there are, I think, 7 bodies there. It's a mass grave. And there's a list of names, and one of them is just called Sylvester. And it was probably the Black Porter. Now here's Little Africa. I had the privilege of writing this plaque for Hamilton, and that is what it came out to be. Early black community on Hamilton Mountain, and we unveiled that, and that is on the Concession Street Library wall right now. And Little Africa was on Hamilton Mountain, and it was the early black settlement established around that mission church on Concession Street. Now, runaway slaves and free blacks, they bought the land on that property and farmed it for years. And then it eventually disappeared because people would go move on and get a better job and not be a farmer anymore. So it disappeared, and by disappearing, the history missed. It became myth again. So we found it again, researched it, and then wrote a plaque about it. So now, in Hamilton, on a library wall, you can read about the settlement. These are the other black settlements that were in Toronto. Buxton, most of them were to the west. So you got Buxton, Dresden, Chatham. Owen Sound was north. There's a cemetery there just for blacks again. And the Queen's Bush, which was basically in the middle. And, of course, the Niagara Peninsula. All these were close to the borders where the blacks could escape slavery and come up into Niagara and Canada for safety. Hamilton also had Dr. Anderson Ruffin Abbott, dies in 1913. He was from Dundas. He graduated from the Toronto School of Medicine in 1861, and he was Canada's first black doctor. He goes back to the States, and in 1863, he's appointed by Abraham Lincoln to be a Union surgeon. Unthinkable at the time, because he was educated, he was a foreigner, he was from Canada, the connection was British, right? He wasn't a slave, he was free. This man cut through the slave racial things. When he came back to Canada, he was our first black coroner. He moved to Chicago, He was a superintendent there for the hospital, and he also was an administrator of the Dundas Mechanics Institute, and he's buried in the necropolis in Toronto. So, the first doctor, black doctor. And we got Charles Roman. He was the son of escaped slaves. He was also from Dundas, and he lost his leg in the mill when he was 17. He was the first black to graduate high school in Hamilton and the Hamilton Collegiate Institute. He became a doctor in the 20s, and he moved to Nashville, which would have been really kind of interesting for a black man to be a doctor going to the South. He did his postgraduate in London and Paris. He became an ear, nose, and throat specialist, and he moved to Dallas in 1904. And we know what happened in Dallas with the president. So he must have been successful. He taught medicine, and he wrote several books. So he was well respected. Steward Memorial Church is the black church in Hamilton, and they have a black Masonic temple there too. They have the Woman's Eastern Star, and that's the Mount Olive First Brothers with their aprons. We also have Ray Lewis, who was an Olympic runner, and he won the bronze medal in this 32 Olympics. The 32 Olympics, I think, was in Germany, and he was the first Canadian born black to win a medal. Also, Reverend John Holland, he was the first Reverend of Steward Memorial Church, and it was his father that was the Civil War veteran from Michigan. Lawrence Hill is from Hamilton. He wrote the Book of Negroes, and our best known is the Honorable Lincoln Alexander. He was the first black MP in Ontario and became the Lieutenant Governor in Ontario. He was also the chairman of the Ontario Heritage Foundation, now the Trust. So Hamilton has a lot of black people that we can look up to and learn from. Now Lincoln becomes important later on. Now, I was asked about the Civil War, and someone said, oh, there's a William Weiner Cook who dies with Custer at the Little Bighorn. You got to talk about him. Okay, fine. So there he is. He had these big mutton chops, right? No beard, just a mustache and mutton chops. And he was 30 years old when he died in 1876. He's Hamilton's most famous Civil War veteran. He dies with General George Custer at the Battle of the Little Bighorn on June 25th, 1876. He enlisted in 1864, and he becomes a companion and friend of Custer. He was a horseman, a crack shot, so what he became was Custer's bodyguard. Right? After the war, they remained friends. Custer visited Hamilton twice with Cook, and Custer took him on his honeymoon when he married Libby. They must have been really good friends. Cook is re-enlisted in the 7th Cavalry, and the story goes on that they go off into Montana, and that's where they die. Now, when you go to a cemetery and you read a stone, when you get the information that that person born, die, and that type of thing. This particular stone is very confusing. It has the GAR up at the top, which is 1861-65. That GAR means that he fought in the Grand Army of the Republic, which are the blue guys in the north. And 61 and 65 are the dates of the Civil War in America. All right? William Weiner Cook, that's who died. Colonel, he wasn't a colonel in the Civil War. All right? Then it says 7th U.S. Cavalry. He wasn't in the cavalry as a colonel in the Civil War. So now you're getting conflicting informations on the same stone. Then it says he killed in action at the Little Bighorn, June 25th, 1876. That means that's 11 years after the top of the stone, which is where he was the most famous Civil War veteran in Hamilton. So when you look at a stone and you get that information, you've got to go, huh? Wait a minute, that doesn't fit with that. And when you're looking for epitaphs and stuff like that in the cemetery, you've got to be more open. And that is a confusing piece of information. Right? Now, I have another example of that, and that's Laura Secord's monument on Queenston Heights. Laura Secord's monument says she took the information to Fitzgibbons for his victory at the Battle of Beaver Dams. It's on Queenston Heights, which was a year before Beaver Dams. So, and Fitzgibbons did not fight the Battle of Beaver Dams. 400 natives fought the Battle of Beaver Dams, so they should get the victory. So right? But our federal government decided to put it on Queenston Heights, right next to the restaurant. So when you go to look at even a monument, which is basically a plaque, it's in the wrong place. And Beaver Dams, when you had the cairn on the battlefield itself, they moved it to downtown Thorold, which has nothing to do with Beaver Dams, because the battlefield itself was destroyed when they built the Welland Canal. So there's two things connected with Laura Secord that are just wrong. I transgress. Okay, so out to Manitoba they go. They fight the Sioux, and they underestimate the amount of natives that are there. It's a running retreat up to the high ground, which is called Custer's Last Stand. All Custer's men are killed, and Cook was second in command at that time. And there were survivors of that massacre. One of them was a guy named Johnny Martin. He was an Italian, and he couldn't speak the English, right? So it was actually Johnny Martinez. And they gave him a bugler, so became a bugler, so that he could make the noise instead of talk. So knowing he couldn't speak English, so he wouldn't know what to do, Cook wrote down the note and gave it to him and said, "Give this to Reno." And it said, "Big village, come up quick," right? And so he sent him off. That makes him a survivor of the massacre, and that written order is in West Point Museum today. So that's pretty cool. You know, you think you have a massacre, there's a survivor. But he would have left the group of them before they got to the last stand. And the only other survivor was a horse, right? And the movies depict Custer, you know, clicking his gun at the last moment and all that. But where they were killed, that's where they were originally buried. And I believe Cook's original death spot is the one behind him, but I can't read it. These are pictures I got off the internet. I've never been to the Custers. And the natives, in their dialogue after the fact, said they gave the honor to the Canadian to die last. The Canadian, the second in command, was Cook. So he would have been the last man to die. They were buried first on the site. Then the Americans set up a national cemetery, and they moved the bodies there. This is Custer's waving goodbye to Libby, and Cook is on the horse to the right. That's Custer on the left. That's the Montana where it was, and that's the memorial there in plaque at the cemetery at the last stand. In 1877, Cook's mother goes to Montana, identifies her son's body, and returns him to Hamilton. She recognizes him by the mutton chops, right? Because that was his trademark. And the natives didn't scalp him. And we know them today as sideburns. And that is a relative placing a flower on the new dedicated mixed up stone that's in the cemetery today. Yeah. And how we got the name Sideburns is also from the Civil War. There was a general called Burnsides, and he could not get across the bridge at Antietam, and the bridge became Burnsides Bridge. And afterwards, because he couldn't do it, he lost the power of the army, and so the turning point of that was the bridge, and it became reversed as Sideburns because Burnside also had the mutton chops. So they turned the words around and named them. And that is the other survivor of the massacre. They found him on the plains, and they paraded him around as a survivor. And there was a plaque there saying who he was. And he went like circuses and rodeos. Okay. Well, probably, I don't know. Now, this is Nelson Stevens. This is where the third part of it comes in. Nelson Stevens was an enigma to me. I knew little about him. I had a list of names, and this particular Nelson Stevens, there were 3 of them, and there was another Nelson Stevens that was spelled with a PH instead of a V. So it was too much work, and I disregarded him, and it turns out that I shouldn't have, because this was my coup of historical research so far. What happened was I brought my son to Ridgeway, to the Battle of Ridgeway, and there's no plaque on the Battle of Ridgeway. I went back home and I talked to Lincoln Alexander, and I said, Lincoln, there's no plaque on the Battle of Ridgeway. And he went, Robin, write it. Oh, okay. So I did a whole bunch of research, took the information to Toronto, delivered it to him, and his secretary took it, and she goes, we usually only get an application. It was this thick. Now, part of the research that I did, I found and read a newspaper from 1892. And in that newspaper, it said the Civil War veterans of Hamilton came out to lay flowers on their veterans. And they list the names of the people that they visited the graves of and put the memorial flag on and the flower. And that ceremony died out in the 1930s when the last veteran's memory of where these graves were died with him. So I now had a list of names. On that list of names was Nelson Stevens with a V, and it said USCT. And I almost dropped my dentures. I went, what? I had never heard of that. And Nelson Stevens, as a Civil War historian, I knew what USCT was, United States Colored Troop. So I had found a black Civil War veteran in Hamilton. And I went, oh, I gotta have this, right? So I did all my research and I looked up some more. I found a great story here, and it even gets better. He was in an unmarked grave in 2006. So I had to triangulate where that unmarked grave was. I used 2 stones that were on maps in the cemetery and then paste them off by how many feet I could go across that road, and made a circle there and said, that's where I think he is. And that was the possible grave. Now, who was Nelson Stevens? He was a black man, born in slavery in Lynchburg, Virginia in 1832. He escaped. I don't know how. He could have been contraband when the Union troops came into Lynchburg and freed him, or he could have been escaped and went to the Underground Railway. Right? He was uneducated laborer, and he comes to Hamilton. Now, in February of 1865, he crosses the border at Buffalo and signs up for the American Army. And he signs it with an X. And how I know that is that I went to Washington, D.C. into the archives, just like the Ontario archives that you guys are going to go to, and it was fabulous. I put in the information I wanted. The girl came out and she handed me his enlistment papers. I didn't even have gloves on, and they didn't either. No, yeah, Xerox it. I was carrying something back to Hamilton as a Xerox. I had his enlistment papers, I had his pay stubs, I had everything you could possibly have on that man, and it said he was from Hamilton. And I went, oh, okay, right? I brought all that home. I now had it. I thought that was the eureka moment of any research, is that I had the proof. I brought it home. And he would, by signing that X on that enlistment papers, he would have been signing his death warrant, because once he was a soldier and took up arms and went to the south and fought the Southerners, they would not have taken any prisoners, and that they killed him. So the idea was that the blacks were taking up arms, which was a revolution against the Southern society. So Fort Pillow is an example where the blacks were fighting there and they massacred them. So that's what would happen. He was paid $100 for signing up. He was poor. That was a lot of money at the time. And he musters into the 25th USC Company B as a private. He was at the time 32 years old. Now the 25th was sent to Florida, and they garrisoned the coastal forts, Fort Pickens, Fort Barracas, and at the end of the war in April 1865, the 25th, along with Nelson, is at New Orleans. The 25th musters out December 6, 1865. So he was an active member of the North from February to December. So almost a year he was a soldier for the United States, making him an American veteran. So in 1866, he returns back to Hamilton, and how I found that is I found the marriage certificate for him and his wife. Right? So he marries a woman he met in Hamilton. He goes to fight, he comes back, and now marriage certificates gives me the route again as where I could find him. He works as a tobacco cigar roller. I cannot find if he worked for George Tuckett, the tobacco magnate of Hamilton. He rolled cigars. This guy rolled cigars. Tuckett got his tobacco from Virginia. He's from Virginia. It makes sense. I can't find a connection. Right? The other confusion at the beginning of this was there was other two Nelsons. Those other two Nelsons were his sons, born as babies, and born as baby, of course, but died as babies. And so he buried them in the Hamilton Cemetery, not with other than his name. So I figured that out. He also had two daughters. Now, Nelson died alone and poor on May 18th, 1890. And the GAR post in Hamilton, named after William Weiner Cook, that's what it was called, and the GAR post is the precursor to the Legion. And they donated the plot for Nelson Stevens because he was poor. Now at that point, he is not with his daughters or his wife. She had moved to Toronto, and I've lost all contact with them. I don't know what happened. She may have changed her name, and the daughters married and changed the names. I got a dead end. I don't know. I'm like you guys. I got a wall. Right? Now that it brings me up to his death and the year after the death, because in 1891, when I was reading the newspaper article for Lincoln Alexander to do the plaque for Ridgeway, is when I found his name as USCT. It's a full circle of research, and never miss an opportunity to go somewhere to get something else, right? And that's how I found him. It's a fantastic story. Now, there's a stone. I told you it was an unmarked grave. Well, when I launched the tour, the Civil War tour, in 2007, I did the talk. It was a fantastic story. And a guy comes out of the crowd, hands me a card, and says, "I'm the commander of the veterans of the U.S. in Canada. What do you got on this guy?" So I had my file, right? And I showed him everything. And he goes, "This is a no-brainer. Here's an application for a stone." I sent that stone to the application to Washington, the Vets Association, or Veterans Affairs, yeah, and heard nothing about it. Then, in November, I get a phone call from the cemetery, and they say, "Your stone's arrived, Robin." I went, "What? What stone?" So I rushed over to the cemetery, and there, on the ground, was a stone for this man who fought in the Civil War, and it was sent to me by President George Bush. Yeah, yeah, that's a great story. It is exciting, right? Now, that picture there is the first picture I took of it. Okay? So in 2007, I launched the tour. That's what happens. And I believe that this stone is the only U.S. Civil War veteran stone in Canada to a black man. It's an official U.S. stone. So if you go to Arlington and you see a Civil War stone, that's what you see, that crest. That is a narco. And this is when I unveiled it. I had reenactors there. And the garden around it over the years has grown. I don't know who does it. They just do it. Before I had the stone, I bought a marker that says not 1812, the Civil War. So that was in the ground before the stone. Okay. This is when I took the picture, and you can still see there's the bindings, because it was in a cardboard. And I was writing an invitation to people to do this unveiling. And I approached my desk from this side, and my paper was upside down. And I saw the picture, right? This is the picture I took, and this is what was on my desk. And when I approached it, I saw a hand, right? Right there. All right? Now, everything else there on the shadows are variegated leaves. I see a hand with a thumb. And it's yeah, well, that's because it's upside down. See, that's this way, right? So when I opened the box, I cut those white things, opened it up, I stood right over it, and took a picture like this, right? So if anything, my shadow would be there, and that's not my shadow taking the picture, right? So I don't believe in ghosts, but I see a hand dropping a flower on that stone. Okay? Thank you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. Official guardian? The which?
Wasn't he a lawyer?
Oh, yeah, he was a lawyer, yeah.
Official guardian acted for the state, children for the state.
I don't know his history there. But see,
I suspect it was him as a young girl in the law. And I had to do some of the estate work.
yes.
Him I was dealing with.
Oh, probably. He was a lawyer.
If that was his capacity.
Oh, he probably did many things. He was a very humanitarian. Now, there's the ironic thing about Lincoln Alexander. If it wasn't for Lincoln Alexander, a black man, telling me to write the story about the Battle of Ridgeway, I would not have found the story of this black man from the Civil War. So it was, you know, you go one way and you go another, and you get something back twice. He's dead.
I wondered.
Yeah, he's died.
I'm getting back close.
so are we. I've been close a couple times. Now, isn't that a fantastic story? I just had to share that with you. Now it was Brian that put those three together for you, because someone in the group asked about Custer, and I had to put him in. But I wanted to talk about Nelson Stephen, because as a researcher and what you guys do for your families and other people, there's no door you can't open and get some information out that could apply somewhere else. Do not ever close a door. Open it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a little loud. Good? I'm live now? All right. Well, thank you very much. On behalf of the Niagara branch, we just want to humbly thank you for a wonderful talk. And please stay after. We always have some goodies. I know there's people lined up. I know there's a guy in the back that needs to ask you about a cemetery.
Oh,
He
yeah.
told me out in the hallway, so.
Okay.
I'm already trying to get you in the queue, but thank you again for that, and we very much enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's always my pleasure, and he challenges me.
Brian
Thank
challenges
you.
me too.
Thank you. And if I can write something else for you, I will.
Great. Thank you. Well, thank you again. Great talk. And please, again, stay after and enjoy some social time and stuff. I just want to say to those people who are online, you need to understand this. Tonight, we started to stream. Instead of using the Adobe Connect that we have been using, we've been having a lot of difficulty with it. So we switched over to Google Hangout. And this meeting is actually streaming live to YouTube. We have 23 people online. And I do know, and I need to recognize a few people, for those who are online, email the branch or go to our Facebook page and just let us know that you've been there and how was the presentation. We need to know for quality, because if it works out well, welcome to Niagara. You're the guinea pig for all of OGS. So we want to see what the results are, because we're going to start sharing this. But I do want to recognize we have a member. I keep teasing her. She's Mrs. Claus. She's signed in from the North Pole in Alaska. So we do have somebody from Alaska here tonight. We have Cindy from Kent Branch, from Chatham, who is signed on tonight. And we just want to welcome them and welcome all of those who are online. And please drop us a note. If those people are online, please remember there is a 45-second delay between what is happening here and what you see at home. That's just the way it works, the system works. But thank you for being with us. Again, we have a little draw. My wife's up the ante. We didn't do the 50-50 tonight. So you're in for a $5 Tim's card if you signed in. And if you didn't sign in, then I guess next month you better sign in. So, huh? Oh, it's just a number. 4. Oh, let's pick another one. Pick a number one. Another one? Yeah. Okay. Tyler's cheating already. See, he's the director and he's already cheating. Okay, it's 15. Okay, I got a bunch of cheating thieves going on here. Yes, I am. Here, sure that thing. 16. There you go, Diane Potter. All right. Again, we want to thank you for coming. Please stay. There's some social time. I did get a message from Alaska that there's a lot of things going on. Somebody, Bill mentioned it earlier about the 1812 markers that are happening down in Fort Erie. One of our members is involved with that. Look it up. They're putting plaques on the 1812 veterans' stones. And I know Fort Erie is really leading the way with that. So look into it, the 1812 Bicentennial Committee out of Fort Erie. Am I correct by saying that?
Yes. They're also looking for possible relatives of the people that they are giving the plaques to. And so, if you're involved in genealogy area, look at on Facebook, all the places.
I'm going to repeat that.
If you have a relative, whoever it is, they'd rather have you do it than somebody else.
They actually want us to do genealogy. They want to track back the people. I'm just repeating it for those online. They're looking for relatives of those who are buried at those locations, and they would like you to be involved. So I do know the lady, Mrs. Claus from the North Pole, is involved. So it doesn't matter where you are, we can get you involved one way or another. So thank you again, and please enjoy. And thanks again for joining us. Oh, there's brochures and stuff here, And again, you'll find out more information on our website about the fall seminar and Archives of Ontario. So thanks again for joining us.